Hi, I'm sure you've grown used to it by now, but it's another video for 1998 Windows, and another set of pretty awesome games. I mean, just check them out. Urban Assault is a 3D real-time strategy and a first-person perspective shooter. Yup, at once. Sorta. It's an oddball of a mix, but a fun one, if you're into at least one of the two genres it's made out of, that is. Anyway, the game starts a few years after a nuclear holocaust that left humanity weak, damaged and shaken. Seeing the state of things, two rivaling alien races jumped on a chance to take advantage of the situation and grab the planet for themselves. Well, not to keep, nothing of the sorts. I mean, in large parts it was a nuclear wasteland by then. They only wanted to drain it out of all the resources and then abandon, same way a 16th century noble would leave his bastard of a child without a single tear spilled, coming back home from years of warmongering and spreading his seeds in all villages along the way. So, like a used and dirty good-for-nothing rag. And since humans are humans and will always be just that, they are split into many conflicting factions too, fighting with invaders as much as with each other. All of the sites available to pick in the game have their own and unique units, naturally with their own distinctive feel and capabilities. Urban Assault makes you feel like a part of a real huge war, with conflicts often having dozens if not hundreds of units engaged at once in different parts of the map, fighting in numerous individual battles for survival and resources. Later on, that is, cause initially the game allows you to get used to its formula, gradually increasing the scale and difficulty. Gameplay itself is pretty cool too, mixing RTS squad management with single-player single-vehicle shooting. Because yes, you guessed it right, you can pretty much take control of any of the units in your army, which is rather fun. And good, cause it will quickly become more than obvious that your performance playing as different units can make a monumental difference in the outcomes of the battles. All because while the AI is rather good, it's the enemy AI that is. Friendly AI is straight up trash. Anyway, Urban Assault is hardly the first game to mix these two particular genres, and definitely not the best one. But it's very good nonetheless, and if you enjoy sci-fi strategies and shooters, it may be your next favorite retro game, even if for just a couple of weeks. Civilization 2 Multiplayer Gold Edition is basically standard Civ 2, but with both of its expansions included and a multiplayer mode, which as we know today is the only really correct and most fun way of enjoying the title. Civ 2 MGE, as I will be calling it from now on, was my favorite outing in the series until the release of Civ 4, and a turn-based 4X strategy. So, extremely exciting extra experiment, as in social and military experiment. Hold on a sec, I think I've mixed up my scripts up here a little. Dang it, I did. Turns out that's 4E and not 4X. 4X that the Civ is stands for Explore, Expand, Exploit and Exterminate. Not the same things, I'm afraid. Anyway, same as in any other Civ to date, you pick a nation to lead and then take it through its whole recorded history from 2000 BC all the way to the near future. Sadly, in this early outing in the series, the differences between those nations are not as prominent and game-changing as they began being in later titles. But it's not something that ever detracted me or anyone else I know from playing, as back then we didn't know any better. The rest of the country management / expansion gameplay is rather solid. So, your typical city building and then detailed management is nothing out of ordinary, and you have to make sure to keep the cities growing, sustainable and outputting plenty enough civilian and military units to improve your country at a steady pace, and be able to defend yourself or wage wars to grab more land, more resources and more cities. Yep, the theme here is more. It always is in Civ games. So yeah, Civ 2 MGE is same as Civ 1, but better and with those extra multiplayer options, which are quite extensive too. You can set up a game over LAN, pretty standard fare, nothing new here. Then there's the play by email mode included. And I know that it sounds crazy today, but it was so fun back then, you could have like 20 games running all at once and only spend like half an hour daily playing. And finally, my most favorite, Hot Seat Multiplayer, the mode in which I happen to play Civ to this very day, albeit in its modern iteration. While Civ 2 MGE was made with gaming with others in mind, it's basically the original with its expansion packs, so enjoying it on your own is not only possible, but also great, and trying out its included scenarios or even dabbling in creating your own with built-in editor prolonged its replayability considerably. There was hardly any other better nation-leading game in 1998 for turn-based lovers, so if you were one, Civ 2 MGE was a treat like no other. Sadly, Test Drive 5 is basically Test Drive 4, just tiny bit better, which says a lot when compared to other racing games on the market that dropped in 1998. Test Drive 4 wasn't great when it released, and 5 just follows suit. And my biggest gripe with it is that the controls are not great. You don't feel the weight of the vehicle, so to speak, the sensation of speed is very artificial and doesn't feel realistic at all, there are dozens of invisible walls and no damage model. Handling is not great too, but that's to be expected in mid-90s Test Drive games, they were kinda known for it. So is it really trash? No, it's not, it's just not great. That said, some things it actually does pretty well, like variety. If you compare it to the Need for Speed 3, arguably a much better playing game, and just put side to side what they offer in terms of anything but fun, then on paper, Test Drive 5 should be better. It features 28 mostly real-life vehicles, both old and new, and each of them feels unique. Still broken, but definitely different from one another. Also 17 tracks, all set in and around real-life locations all around the world. So, San Francisco, Moscow, Edinburgh, Sydney and many more are where you'll be racing. They're perhaps not set on real-life roads, but the backdrops, buildings and roadside objects are all unique and thematically fitting, so they're all rather fun to experience. If you haven't played Test Drive 4, that is. Because if you have, you'll immediately realize that many of the tracks have been ported from it with hardly any extra work done on them, which is a bit disappointing, especially for all the 11 remaining fans of the series that were still faithful to it throughout those dry years. Few of the tracks have branching routes on them, adding a bit to the variety, but these are usually short and nothing special. Police chase mode is just an afterthought when looked up close, as compared to that used in Need for Speed it looks poor, with just one squad car chasing you, hardly posing a challenge or adding to the difficulty. To summarize, Test Drive 5 is not a good game. It's not unplayable either, it just is. And if you had nothing else in '98, it was definitely capable of providing racing variety for a little while. But compared to anything else in the genre at the time, it was just poor in fun. Lords of Magic Special Edition is a base title coupled with its later expansion and an excellent fantasy strategy game in its own right. The land of Uruk is torn in war between 8 nations, all supporting a different region, different set of beliefs and values. One of the nation's leaders, Lord of Death Balkov, is bent on destroying others, all in the name of his dark deity, God Golgoth. And since his fanatism spreads over his entire country like a cancerous plague devouring any free minds there, he is known to be the most dangerous out of them all. The other factions have no other choice but to expand their armies and prepare for the encounter with the Mad Balkov. Lords of Magic combines turn-based exploration and resource management with real-time combat and does it in one of the most engaging and surprisingly fun ways. If you like difficult and long-lasting games, that is. Because it's not unusual in LOM to spend few hours just setting up during early game turns for the long and difficult battles to literally span over dozens of long hours after. If you're not picking any of the fast scenarios, the game of LOM can easily take 40 to 70 hours. But if you're a fan of a genre, you won't feel that time at all, having fun all the way through. You can pick one of the opposing two Balkov nations to play as, and each of them feels distinct and has its own specific units. These units are led by a hero that represents your champion, and this champion can be a warrior, thief or a mage. And as per usual when there are classes, these two represent their expected advantages and quirks. So, a mage is very glass cannon-y, but can lay terrible destruction with his devastating spells, the warrior is excellent at combat, and while it sounds boring when spoken about, cannot be ignored in the field of the battle, and finally thief can sabotage enemy armies to weaken them so that it's easier for you to overcome them. Or more difficult for them to put you in your place. Cause yeah, that's possible too. LOM's fantasy strategy marrying with simple RPG elements turned out to be a happy coupling that not only works great as a package, but is also very fun to experience. So make sure not to skip it if you're into the genre. By 1998, we really didn't need another generic feeling RTS, and Tribal Rage is most definitely not one. If anything, it's one of the most unique takes on the genre that I've seen. It's still a genre that I care very little for, let's make that clear, but at least it's unlike anything else. It takes place in a dark futuristic version of Earth in the currently not so far off future of 2030. The Earth was decimated by natural catastrophes, wars and drained of its formerly rich resource pools. Humanity is in constant conflict and more reminiscent of the world of Mad Max than our own. Well, less desert-like but brutal, animalistic and tribal in its social divide. So, survivors formed clans and tribes to stay safe and to keep fighting for the remnants of what the planet still had to offer. You can take control of one of these clans to lead it to the ultimate post-apocalyptic victory. The choice here is not only varied, but also rather interesting. So you have bikers. They're the closest thing in-game to Fallout's raiders, so dangerous, aggressive and all about killings and pillaging. Not always in this particular order. Then there are Amazons, female barbarians of the game, strong, courageous, capable of converting, wink wink nudge nudge, women from other tribes onto their side and riding on dinosaurs' backs. Don't ask, I know, crazy. We're gonna have dinos here in 6 years and people don't talk about it. It's ridiculous. The cyborgs are your Robocop wannabes. Part human, part machine, all the way destruction and demolition. And no part law and order. Enforcers? Now these are semi-civilized folks. Mainly former cops and soldiers, they know how to use all weapons and have the best. They want the laws to be respected and followed. Thing is though, it's their laws. Trailer trash is kinda self-explanatory, not much changed between now and then, so they're pretty much what you expect them to be. Death cultists are the end-of-the-world believers, and as most religious fanatics, they base most, if not all of their decisions on blind faith and not facts or logic. Very, very dangerous because of that. Civilians? That's you and I, friend, perhaps not the most strong faction of them all, but definitely one of the most, well, humane. While many of the techs are rather generic and available to all of these groups, each of them have their own unique ones and unit types too. What's more, the customizability of said units is rather unparalleled, allowing you to build them to your specifications, exchanging available modules based on the tech that you have researched. Modules comprise of weapons and equipment and are really fun addition to the already rather one-of-a-kind gameplay loop, as they allow for crafting of really unusual strategies suited to counter that of your virtual or real-life opponents would use against you. Research itself is probably the weakest part of the entire game, as it takes no time at all and just makes you pay for the technology. If you think about it though, it's an RTS, so who would have wanted to wait for the tech to be available? Anyway, I'm not gonna lie to you, Tribal Rage is definitely not the best RTS that you've played, probably not even in the top 5, but it's one of the most creative takes on the genre. Well worth a look. Show me a bad Star Wars game and I'll give you, I don't know, let's pick something reasonable. A car maybe? A house? No. Oh, I know, it will be thematically suiting too. Maybe a toy lightsaber. You know what, come to think of it, I made no one, so no, you're not getting any of these. I'll give you a virtual high five. How does that sound? It's probably worth more than all of these. I mean, I am a future traveling multimillionaire extraordinaire. And all I really need to get there is those millions. Multiples of them, naturally. So you know, I'm like halfway there, cause knowing is half of the battle or whatever. Anyway, Rogue Squadron 3D is the first game in the series and an arcade action shooter. What made it stick out as compared to earlier games like X-Wing or TIE Fighter was its easygoing approach to gameplay. Rogue Squadron didn't pretend to be a simulation to be serious about the struggle with the Empire. No, it was an arcade shooter, it knew that it was, and it placed all of its bets on the fun factor. And boy oh boy, did it win big. Take it from me, so someone who's not a huge fan of the movies. You play as Luke Skywalker, and in this particular game, your Jedi skills are virtually irrelevant. Your piloting, though, is stuff of legends, and precisely what you'll be doing. And all the freaking time at that, cause you're a commander of an elite rogue squadron, which you'll lead through 16 missions against the evil Galactic Empire. While most of what you'll be doing is pew-pewing enemies into a rain of debris and series of fireworks, your missions will actually have objectives, and these are rather fun too. So search and destroy, reconnaissance, rescue and protect. And I could try to explain them here, but naming is so obvious that it would be a dishonor to your intelligence if I did, my dear viewer. And dishonor like that is punishable by years of toilet cleaning on a flagship Imperial Star Cruiser. And stormtroopers don't fool around on chilly Tuesdays and curry Thursdays. I mean, the concentration of methane in breathable air on these particular days on a Star Cruiser can be much higher than on some of the smaller planets in the galaxy throughout the entire year. Breathable air, that's a joke. Let's say that everyone knows that using matches is prohibited on the Empire's ships. Anyway, you'll have access to 5 unique crafts throughout the campaign, each with its own armament as well as varying speeds and maneuverability. Let's make things clear. Rogue Squadron 3D is an action game through and through, and all it really cares for is fast, frantic action, plenty of targets for you to remove from this plane of reality, and beautifully rendered zooming around the space and planet's vehicles. There's a story, sure, and it's canon, sure, but will you be paying attention to it? I doubt it, but if you enjoy arcade titles, it's probably the best one in this entire video. Heroes of Might and Magic 2 Gold is a follow-up and a much better game than the earlier Heroes of Might and Magic, and secondly, it's my most favorite outing in the whole series. Not only because it improves on everything the first one did, but also because it comes along with its huge-ass expansion pack. It's a fantasy strategy game with some role-playing elements that, while offering a campaign, was and will be best played in hot seat multiplayer against other people. The game sees you and your heroes fighting for a control of a particular map in turn-based gameplay, capturing and expanding cities, resource production locations like mines, mills and the likes, and building your armies to face the fantasy world it is set in. The game features 6 different heroes: Knight, Barbarian, Sorceress, Warlock, Wizard and Necromancer, and each of them is described by series of 4 basic and 8 secondary stats. the secondary ones being trainable in 3 proficiency levels from basic through advanced to expert. Each of the heroes feels and plays different, and the corresponding castles are unique too, not only offering their own class-specific buildings, but also completely different and upgradable units. The map has many more features as well. Most prominent of them are the teleports that work as, well, teleports, allowing you to cover large distances in an instant. I mean, if a barbarian wants a pot noodle soup and he's in a castle in the middle of a dense forest, he will get that pot noodle soup, okay? That's what the teleporters are for. Everyone knows you don't toy with barbarians' hunger. Everything about Heroes 2 is grander and better. Combat screens are bigger and have their terrain features that cannot be passed by creatures other than the flying ones. Overworld maps can be huge now too, and compared to the previous game, they are gigantic. And last but not least, magic is not based on memorization of spells, but spell points or mana, whichever name you prefer. Heroes can cast as many magic spells as they like on an overworld map, as long as they have enough mana to do so. And one spell per turn in combat is also limited by the blue mouthwash. Other than that, it's the same game. Better game, but same. Most swear that Heroes of Might and Magic 3 was the best out of them all, but I always found Heroes 2, and especially with its amazing price of loyalty expansion included in this gold package, to be the most fun to play. It added tons of maps and new campaigns, few extra cool things like eye towers or blocking stones to name a few, elementals, yep, elementals, and the most interesting and useful creature dwelling in the entire game, the Barrow Mount. It allowed for recruiting of ghosts, one of the best units in the entire series. They are far from being the strongest, fastest or most resistant. In fact, they sit somewhere in the middle stat-wise, but have an uncanny ability to increase their unit number by defeating the enemies. So they were best utilized against large groups of very weak enemies first, to boost up their numbers considerably, feeding on the weak, which promptly increased their importance on the battlefield, with each next attack and combat encounter. If cultivated properly, they can quickly grow into thousands and become the most dangerous unit in the game. Oh, there's a built-in map editor too, and it's so good. Easy to use and features rather fun scripting tools letting you craft really cool scenarios. I love Heroes of Might and Magic 2, and Gold version is an ultimate package and a must-have masterpiece in my eyes. Sure, objectively speaking Heroes 3 was better, but to me, nothing could compare to the second. Oddworld Apes Exoddus is a successor to year prior's Apes Odyssey, and still a flip-screen action puzzle platformer. Interestingly enough, despite there being 5 of these in the series, this second is the only one considered to be a spin-off and not a part of the main run. I'd say odd, but that would make it weirdly fitting. Anyway, the story is a direct follow-up to the first and sees you playing as Ape, still trying to free your fellow Mudcons from the evil Glacons. Aliens that treat Mudcons like a delicacy and devour them while still fresh. So I heard. I have no proof of that. Can anyone please show me any proof of that? Or is it a conspiracy spread by Mudcons trying to frame the innocent Glacons for crimes that never took place? It's not, I'm sorry, I got carried away. Gameplay is basically the same as before, so each of the levels is composed out of numerous screens and filled with tons of small environmental puzzles that will require solving. So you'll be using your skill of possession, controlling minecarts, activating and deactivating of objects, pulling levers like a maniac, using rogues, grenades, bombs and many more, in various often unusual and ending in a funny resolution ways. You can also creep, walk, run, roll, hoist, jump and crouch, and these will be your main tools of survival when escaping the ever-hungry Glacons. Oh, and you'll die a lot, because of course that the game is as punishing as the first one was, and hoping to be able to always run away is a rather naive notion. Apes Exoddus was considered an amazing title by gamers and the press alike, and became a beloved title on both PlayStation and PC. I never liked it, but I sucked at it, so that may be the reason. Warhammer 40k Chaos Gate is an isometric top-down turn-based squad-centric tactical strategy, translating the tabletop original onto a digital video game medium, and a mouthful like no other. Probably more mouthful than anything else. It is set in a titular 40k universe and depicts a squad, or squads really, of ultramarines led by courageous Captain Kruger through a tense and epic campaign against the perilous and traitorous forces of chaos. While the 15 missions strong campaign is the main dish of this tasty treat of a game, it also comes with few appetizing sides, namely series of single missions, random mission generator, a very accessible scenario builder and even a dessert in the form of multiplayer support. So it's a full 5-course meal if you will, that will leave you full and satisfied if you like turn-based tactics games or the Warhammer 40k. Combat plays out in turns, during which all of your units can perform as many actions as they'd like, or as you'd like them to, cause you're the brain behind this entire campaign, as long as they have action points to do so. So they can move, fire weapons or throw a grenade. It may not sound like a lot when put like that, but if you keep in mind that there's dozens of available equipment for your troops, and that proper gearing up for each mission and picking the right squads is a must for a chance of success, you will not get bored playing the game. Space Marines naturally gain experience and can improve their stats as they participate in the missions. They can also be assigned to either a general purpose squad or one of 3 specialized ones. So Assault, Devastator and Terminator, which are amazing names for 1980s sci-fi action movies. Oh wait, I think I've heard of one. Anyway, extra weapons can be found during the run of your campaign, and in the latter missions you'll even get access to some vehicles, so there's always something in Chaos Gate keeping it fresh feeling. Naturally, there's simple morale system too, and it works same as in original, so try to avoid being burned alive by a flamethrower or have too many of your men fall if you can, as the rest may lose their will to fight. To summarize, if you're a fan of a tabletop classic, Chaos Gate is a no-brainer. And if you're not, or never played it, it may still be worth a try, as it's as fun to someone who has no intimate knowledge in the lore. Take it from me, I know of it from video games only. The stupid-ass name The X-Files game, as if we didn't know it was one, and it was a surprise for us when we made the purchase, is a rather decent first-person perspective point-and-click interactive movie type of an adventure game. All the main characters from the series are not only played by the same actors, but are done with no less flair than they were in the series. And take that sentence how you'd like, I know that while X-Files was universally loved, there were these who hated it too. Story is set somewhere in the middle of the series' 3rd season, and Fox Mulder and Dana Scully disappeared on one of their missions. Oh no, not Fox and Dana, I mean, who's going to uncover all them terrible government secrets and alien activities? Who's gonna talk to Assistant Director Walter Skinner? And who will never get to learn of a man with a chronic cough? Well, simply put, you will, or won't, depending which question we're answering here. But all that after you complete the game by finding our 2 heroes. You're Special Agent Craig Wilmore, and while you may not be new to the whole agent thing, you're definitely new to your special agent for the FBI working on unimaginable cases thing. The game starts with you having just one lead, and that being of our dynamic duo's last location, Everett, Washington. And that's where you need to head off, gearing up before naturally, to follow the trail of crumbs and solve the mystery before it's too late. Many FMV games are garbage, but this one isn't. It's well, okay. It's okay. The story, while not groundbreaking in any way, will keep you involved and entertained all throughout, especially that it's very otherworldly as expected, because you'll do a lot of detective, or should I say FBI investigator work along the way, and that the decisions you'll make on your mission will end up setting up the ending, because of course there are multiple endings and some are worse than others. So, if you're a fan of the series, I have no doubt that you'll love it. But if you're not, then even despite its rather decent visuals and video quality, there are many better FMV games out there. Like, a lot better. So make your own mind about it. Holy amazing 1998, Batman! Are we done with it yet? Nope, we're not. I have a bit more to cover. But did you like today's games? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked the video, hit those like and subscribe buttons below. Smash them if you have to, it helps more than you could ever know. Also, I would like to thank you and all my amazing Patreon and YouTube members for helping this channel keep going. And last but definitely not least, I would like to thank all the wonderful folks who record and upload playthroughs, let's plays and other retro-centric videos here on YouTube, because they help to preserve the games that would have otherwise been long forgotten. So thank you.
I could run a DNA test on the saliva on that cigarette.
That's a bit